The night was silent. Thousands of ships waited in the darkness off the coast of England. Even the sound of engines was muffled. The soldiers didn't speak. Some were praying. Others were looking at family photos in their pockets. Because in a few hours, the greatest amphibious landing operation in human history would begin. But there was something no one knew. The fate of the operation didn't depend on tanks or soldiers. It depended on the weather. And if one man made a wrong weather forecast that night, thousands of ships could sink, tens of thousands of soldiers could die, and World War II could end completely differently. That's exactly the tension the movie Pressure depicts. Part 1, Europe plunges into darkness. The Nazis were crushing Europe. After the Battle of France, France had collapsed. Paris had fallen. Hitler now controlled much of Europe. England was left alone. London was being bombed at night. The sound of sirens shattered people's psychology. For millions of people in Europe, freedom seemed almost impossible. But America, England, and the Allies were preparing a grand plan. Code name, Operation Overlord. Objective, to return to Europe. Chapter 2, Why Normandy? Everyone thought the attack would come from Pas-de-Calais, because it was the closest point to England. Hitler's generals thought, if there's going to be an attack, it will be here. But the Allies made another plan. Normandy. It was riskier. It was further away, but it was less protected. And here, one of the greatest deception operations in history began. Fake tanks were produced. Inflatable vehicles were used. False radio signals were broadcast. False armies were formed. Thanks to Operation Fortitude, the Germans looked in the wrong place for weeks. Even after the real landing began, Hitler thought it was a diversion. This mistake changed the fate of the war. Chapter 3, The World's Largest Invasion Force. By 1944, England had become a giant military base. The ports were full of soldiers. American soldiers marched in the streets. Ammunition was everywhere. The prepared force was incredible. More than 150,000 soldiers, more than 5,000 ships, nearly 11,000 aircraft. No one in human history had ever undertaken such an operation, but there was a terrible problem. The weather. Chapter 4, The Heart of the Film Pressure. The film pressure begins here. The film is about the pressure to make decisions, rather than the war itself. Meetings in a closed room, maps, cigarette smoke, and the feeling of impending disaster. General Dwight D. Eisenhower had to launch the operation, but the sea was very bad. If the waves rose, landing boats could be destroyed. Tanks could sink. Soldiers could die before reaching the shore. If there were too many clouds, bombers could not see their targets. Parachute troops could land in the wrong places. This was not just an operation. This was a gamble on the future of civilization. Chapter 5, The Most Important Weather Forecast in History. The most critical character in the film, James Stagg. Today, we check the weather on our phones. But in 1944, there were no satellites. There were no modern radars. There were no computers. Meteorologists looked at the limited data from ships in the Atlantic, and everyone made different predictions. Some said, the operation is impossible. Some said, wait. But waiting was also a disaster, because millions of tons of equipment had been prepared. Soldiers had boarded the ships. If the operation was delayed, the Germans could find out everything. This is where the tension of pressure rises. James Stagg finally said there would be a small clearing in the weather, just a short window, just a few hours. And the fate of world history was tied to this prediction. Chapter 6, Eisenhower's Decision. The night of June 5th, 1944, everyone in the room was silent. The maps were on the table. The sound of rain hit the windows. Eisenhower looked at everyone one last time. If he made the wrong decision, hundreds of thousands of soldiers could die. Germany could prolong the war. Europe could remain under Nazi control for years. There were a few seconds of silence. Then Eisenhower said the sentence that changed the course of history. "Okay, let's go." And the operation began. Chapter 7, D-Day begins. The morning of June 6. The sky was gray. The sea was rough. Thousands of ships headed toward the Normandy coast. Most of the soldiers didn't know what they would face. The beaches where landings took place. Utah, Omaha, gold. Juneau, sword. But the most terrifying place was Omaha Beach. A complete hell unfolded there during the Normandy landings. As soon as the gates opened, machine gun fire began. Soldiers fell into the water. Some drowned under the weight of their equipment. Some died before they could even see the shore. The sea had turned red. Even though the film doesn't show it directly, all the psychological weight of pressure actually comes down to this moment, because that was a result of the decision made. Chapter 8, one of Hitler's biggest mistakes. The German commanders were in shock, but Hitler still thought the main attack would come elsewhere. That's why he sent some tank units late. And that delay was fatal. The Allies managed to hold on to Beach. If the German tanks had attacked in the first hours, perhaps history could have changed completely. Chapter 9, the liberation of Europe. After Normandy, the Allies advanced into France. Months later, Paris was liberated. The Nazis began to retreat. And about 11 months later, Germany surrendered. D-Day was not just a battle. It was a day that changed the course of the modern world. Thousands of soldiers were fighting on the shores of Normandy, but one of the unseen heroes of that day was a meteorologist, because sometimes the fate of history is determined not by tanks, but by clouds. Chapter 10, the real message of the film Pressure. Most war films show weapons, but Pressure is different. This film is about stress, leadership, the pressure of decision-making, because sometimes wars are won not by soldiers, but by decisions, and sometimes the fate of history can depend on a single weather forecast.